Basmala, or the beginning, which is in the name of God, the most merciful, gives peace, yet God doesn't want to give people peace in this particular chapter. Therefore, it is missing from there. And that's really troubling to me, because I tell my Muslim people, basically, if the Quran is a book of peace, then why does this particular chapter misses this introduction? Now, I want to move on to also another example after this one. We talked about killing the idolaters in general. Let us take another closer look at another troubling passage found in the same chapter, chapter 9, verse 29. This time it says, again, I want to highlight the word fight. And by the way, the word fight, even though it's in English, might give you the impression that there is some sort of a spiritual fighting. Actually, the word fight in Arabic is a jihadist terminology that demands physical fighting. This time, the word fight is actually not against just idolaters in general, it is against people of the book. Now, do you know, Bill, who are these people of the book?
Oh, yes. This is a very unusual statement, people of the book, and this means the Jews and the Christians, but it also is an insight into Arabia at the time. I think that the Quran was the first book ever written in Arabic.
That is correct.
And for the Arabs, who had a very oral tradition, that the Christians and the Jews with books, this was special. They were a people set apart. It is said there were 360 religions practiced in Mecca.
Or idols, basically.
Right. But these were all oral traditions. The Jews and the Christians had something special, the book.
And we're going to cover this shortly. Now, here is what's so troubling to me about this particular verse. If we can take a look at it together and read. It says, fight those who believe not in Allah. And we said Allah is the name of the God of Islam. So your first crime is that you do not believe in the God of Islam.
Exactly.
So that by itself is a crime that demands a Muslim to fight you. What is your next crime? Nor the last day, meaning you do not believe in Judgment Day. Now let's be fair. Christianity and Judaism does believe in the Day of Judgment. The Bible is filled with examples and verses and passages that warn of a Judgment Day. So this is, in my mind, just a false accusation. And also the fact that they do not believe in God. I mean, I'm not going to use the word Allah, because Allah is not the name of the God of the Bible. But if the idea they do not believe in God, the Bible also is very clear that the Jews and the Christians are demanded to believe in the one God, the creator of heaven and earth and mankind. So what is the next crime? Nor hold that which is forbidden by Islam, basically. Now, this is a very dangerous one, by the way. Do you know that by drinking wine or beer or eating pork, you automatically qualify to fall under the judgment of this passage, because Islam prohibits wine, basically, and the eating of pork. So if someone drinks alcohol, and even we're talking about a sip of alcohol, you are violating one of the teachings of Islam, and hence you fall under the judgment of this passage. Does that sound like a peaceful religion to you, Bill?
Well, basically what this is saying is, if I do not follow Sharia law, which is a term we're going to be talking about later, I'm in trouble. Why? Because I did not submit. Basically, this is saying I have to submit to Islam. I have to believe in Muhammad. I have to believe in Allah. And if not, I'm to be fought. And as you say, as we read the context of all this is not a fight in the sense of a debate.
True. Now, look, another thing. If we do not acknowledge the religion of truth, which is Islam, then we are in trouble, because now Islam is commanding its followers to fight us. Now, Bill, this is talking about me and you. Me, I'm a former Muslim. That by itself is a crime.
Oh, that's worse.
And you do not follow the religion of Islam, at least to my knowledge.
No, I do not.
Are you a Muslim?
I do not.
Well, just by admitting this right now, we are incriminating ourselves under the command of this particular verse. And it's not only us. It's millions of people who live in the western side of the universe, in Europe, in the US, or even if you're a Christian or a Jew who live in the Middle East. You are a target for this command to be fought. How does that make you feel, Bill? Do you feel peaceful about this?
I don't feel peaceful, and as a matter of fact, I feel very uncomfortable, to be exact. I mean, if I have a Buddhist neighbor, I'm not concerned about their concern with me and my religion or lack thereof or anything. They make no demands on me. I have Jewish friends. They make no demands on me. Christian friends will invite me, but they make no demands.
Now, Bill, you did study all of the isms, as you mentioned in episode 1. Did you find any similar command in any of these religions to ask its followers to go and compel their religion on you by force?
No. We do need to take a sidebar here. It is very common with people who don't know a lot about Islam to make the argument that all religions are the same. Let's skip over that. That's just and so therefore, one of the things that people do is they condemn all religions. But in particular, one of the things they'll say is, well, there's violence in the Old Testament as well. However, and I've done a statistical study of this, never mind the fact that the Qur'an contains enormously more amount of violence, the violence in the Qur'an and the violence in the Old Testament, and there's none in the New Testament, has an important distinction. The violence in the Old Testament is a history lesson. On this day, these people attacked this tribe.
And I want to add to this. I am majoring in biblical studies. And I want to emphasize to people a couple of things. First of all, I appreciate the fact that you're calling it violence. It actually has a spiritual meaning. God, Yahweh, the Lord of the covenant, is teaching his people a lesson. There is sin, and sin must be eradicated. So it has a meaning. In fact, if you go to the book of Joshua, it talks about eradicating certain groups and nations that God told Abraham almost 500 years earlier that he is going to be patient and waiting until their sins have been fulfilled. In fact, if you study the history behind these nations, they used to sacrifice their own babies and children. This is an abomination in the sight of God. God did not create man to be sacrificed. He created animals for purposes like this. Yes, the God of the covenant basically demanded that faith and blood sacrifice is the way for salvation, but he never really talked about sacrificing your own children as a result of this. People don't understand this.
Well, there's another thing as well. If we will, that's like a lesson in history. This is not only now, it is universal and into the future. It says there's no end to this.
That is true. And I want to add to what Bill is talking about. For instance, if you go to the Bible, to the book of Joshua, where we find most of these accounts that Bill is talking about, take the book of Joshua out, you're never going to find anything tangible in the rest of the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, that talks about violence, if we want to wish, or at least eradicating violent people or violent nations. Now, that's different. That's basically descriptive. It's an event. It's narrative of something that took place back then. In the Quran, this is a prescriptive.
Yes.
It's like going to a doctor and getting a prescription and says, whenever you feel ill, go and take this medicine. And also, you mentioned something about chapter 9, even though it's number 9 out of 114 chapters in the Quran that we have today, at least. It doesn't mean that it's the 9th chapter. It means actually historically that either the last chapter, or some will say it's the one next to last. In fact, chapters 5 and 9 are very crucial in terms of understanding the direction that Islam and Muhammad took in terms of spreading Islam. It turned from peaceful all the way to jihadist, basically, mentality. Would you like to elaborate on that?
One of the things I would like to elaborate on is how successful this was. Muhammad preached the religion of Islam in Mecca for 13 years and got about 150 people to follow him.
Some account says even less than 100.
All right, but humor me, 150. That's about 10 a year, all right?
Right.
However, when he switched to this later jihad, he was overwhelmingly successful. My figures indicate that he started persuading about 10,000 a year. So this program was overwhelmingly successful. And indeed, to such a degree, as best we can tell from the history that's been left, when Muhammad died, every Arab was a Muslim, and Muhammad did not have a single enemy left standing. This was an enormously successful program. It worked.
And I want to add to what my colleague Bill is talking about here. What Bill is saying is Muhammad, just using peaceful methods by inviting people, wasn't successful in converting more than 100 to 150 to be his followers. He was in a state of weakness. Then he moved to Medina, found himself now not only a religious leader and a prophet, he found himself to be a political leader. In fact, that was the nucleus that started what we call the Islamic Ummah, or community, or nation, if you want to call it. Now, using force was one of the ways that Muhammad was able not only to intimidate his enemies, but also to attract his own followers by giving him these promises. If you are successful, you can take spoils, women as concubines. If you die, you go straight to paradise, your sins are forgiven, and on top of that, if you're a male, which is all of them were male at that time that were fighting with Muhammad, you get 72 virgins in heaven. I mean, what a sweet deal, Bill.
Well, my way of putting it is, he made religion pay. Right. I mean, this was, as a matter of fact, we'll be talking more about the Hadith or traditions. There are many Hadith which refer to the wealth that Muslims got because they got 80% of what was captured. Muhammad got 20%.
Correct.
And by the way, the Muslims of the day were complimentary to Muhammad for taking only 20% because, according to Arab custom, the leader of raider bands got 25%. So Muhammad, if you will, cut them an even better deal, but they got rich. And there are many hadith which refer to the wealth that came to Islam.
Now, one important thing I want to mention, after the death of Muhammad, there were some that decided they want to leave Islam.
Yes, they did.
And the Khalifa Abu Bakr, who is the very first, basically, governor that took the throne after Muhammad, he wasn't a prophet, but he was a political leader, fought them in what is infamously known as the battles of the apostates.
Yes.
Now, my question is this. Why would you fight people that elect to leave a religion and make a free choice? Isn't Islam a religion of peace?
What's interesting about Abu Bakr, when there were a lot of Muslims, Arabs who had converted to Islam. When Muhammad died, they said, you know, we've tried the Islam thing and it was fine, but we're out of here now. But Abu Bakr's statement was not just about religion, because every Muslim owed a tax, the zakat, which we will get to more later. And I love the way he put it. He says, if they only owe a baby goat, I will collect it. So this is not just religious, it is political as well. The taxes will be collected. You're a Muslim, you'll pay the tax.
Absolutely. You know, ladies and gentlemen, these are very interesting discussions. There is a lot to cover, Bill. Unfortunately, we're almost running out of time. And all I can say is basically we will continue on with this discussion in our coming episode, because it is very crucial for our viewers and listeners to see for themselves and hear about what the Quran teaches and what Islam is all about. Bill, would you like to give a final thought before we
My
end?
final thought is that I find this material fascinating. What we're doing here is to unveil. This is an important show in that it used to be very difficult to understand Islam. One of the messages that we are presenting to people now is it's fascinating and it's easy to do now. In this book that you've worked on, the Quran Dilemma, a magnificent work which makes the Quran transparent. People can now, for the first time in humanity's history, everyone can understand Islam.
Bill, thank you so much. And I would like to remind our viewers that they can go to the website that is shown on the screen and also use the email provided to them to send us their thoughts, their questions, and any of their comments or suggestions. We'll be more than happy to respond to them, entertain them, and hopefully also you can give us any suggestions of any future topics that are on your heart that you would like for us to discuss. Bill, very interesting discussion. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to our next episode.
Me too.
With that in mind, my viewers, thank you so much. This is Al Fadi, your host of the Islamic Dilemma. Mega blessings to you.